CS has been receiving money from a particular Chinese company in the form of bribes. We'll look at that. And then there's still a continuation of the oil importation saga that we discussed last week with the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now throwing stones in a particular direction. We'll see how whether what he says is something people can take to the bank. And then the country, even right now, is celebrating the students who performed very well in their KCPE, which is the last one. And what we are doing right now, we've been celebrating, and we are asking whether we have been putting pressure, undue pressure, on these students. All this in a couple of seconds or so. I have George Ngaire, a political analyst, with me in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Fred.
All right. And kama kawaida, we have Pastor David Wamathu, and I keep on saying David always wears so many hats. One of these days, we're probably going to introduce him as an oil importer.
A very sincere and a great man who is going to import without all these things which are happening. Thank you, Fred.
All right. And now that we mentioned a little bit about oil, it's taking a different twist. Now, the Deputy President comes up and says that what the oil importation saga with an Anjeri saga, he claims, and he did it publicly. He says the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are involved. And he says the reason why they all of a sudden appeared and started talking about oil, Uhuru was quiet for a long time, but he appeared in Mwingi. And he says the reason is we have touched their nerve. They are the faces behind Anjeri. I don't know. What do you read? You know, at times the Deputy President speaks and you wonder, okay, your thoughts. Ngaire, let me start with you.
First of all, Fred, thank you for having me again. It's been a while, almost a couple of weeks since I was last year. But it's very unfortunate that the government of Kenya is playing around with a very important commodity in the lives of people of Kenya. You know, oil, just like food, means life because of its central role that it plays in our day-to-day endeavors in terms of the cooking gas that you do at home, the fuel that you have to use to transport yourself. So it's very hard to delink yourself, to delink the common mwananchi with what oil does to its lifestyle. So for the government of Kenya to sort of not come out very clear and indicate to the public what is at stake, I think it's very unfortunate. And going into the case is that every single month we consume almost 200 million liters of fuel that comes in. So the importation of fuel is not done on a quarterly or a biannual basis, but is a monthly basis. So for a ship to dock at the port almost a year after this government came into power, it has completely nothing to do with the previous regime. It has something and everything to do with what is happening in government. And particularly for the president having indicated that because of the shortage of the high fuel prices that were going to go for the government-to-government deals that was going to cushion Kenyans from the high fuel prices, and also to sort of strengthen the Kenyan shilling by getting into a shilling transaction with an international agency. And actually indicated that this was a government-to-government deal, which when you look at the facts of the cases...
What are the facts of the cases? Because you seem to be going... insinuating that this is not a government-to-government deal.
You see, the president has indicated that they approached the state corporations of Saudi Arabia and Emirates for them to have such a deal for the reasons that I've just explained, for the benefit of the Kenyans. But when you look at the terms of the contract and the players of the contract, is that you have a Saudi state agency doing a transaction with a private company where there is no government actually in place or any government institution in place.
Doing transaction, which is this private company?
The only agency that can transact on behalf of the state and the people of Kenya on oil matters is the National Oil Corporation, which is a state agency that is actually supposed to get into a government-to-government deal with the Saudi state corporation, so that then they are able to have all the reasons that the governor explained they're going into the oil business with. But you see, there are companies which the former Prime Minister has publicly, and in press, you're a journalist, you've covered that. He went ahead to mention some private companies that have actually purported to have engaged with the government of Saudi on behalf of Kenyans. A simple question would be, who are these companies? how were they vetted, what are the terms that they offered on the table, and who are the other competitors that are also on play, that they were better than for them to be given that mandate to actually negotiate on behalf of the state at the expense of a fully funded state corporation in the name of the National Oil Corporation. So there's no government to government transaction there.
As long as there's no national oil,
yes,
it's then not a government to government.
The three companies that have been singled out having been contracted by the Saudi State Corporation and other, I think the 2-3 other countries, I think Emirates and another different countries that are transacting on behalf of Kenyans are fully private limited companies. You understand?
Yes.
When you're doing importation, Fred, and you look at the letters of credit that are being extended to this company to guarantee them to guarantee them for importation, they're being done by private banks. But government to government transactions are guaranteed by the National Treasury. It's they're guaranteed by the National Treasury. Yeah, not some private companies.
Well, I like what George is saying, and I can tell you one thing. When you find these guys talking the way they are talking, it is a deal that has gone south. And I am very happy, and the other time we said we are very happy that the former Prime Minister has come out.
Yes.
Do you know, all these guys, yesterday I watched something from Fala Marim, and I think he brought it out in the right way. And he talked about former President Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He talked about Gachagua, and he talked about Ruto. And he said these people, right now from where he sits, they are untrustworthy.
All of them?
All of them. Actually, can I tell you what is happening is this Kenya is actually owned by very few people. And you will be able to see, if you get to some sectors, the banking sectors, you know who are the people who own the bank. Yes. You get even to Safaricom and all these things. You can actually see who is actually behind all these kind of things. You get to the milk sector, you can actually tell who is actually on this.
The communication mountain.
Yes. You go to gas and energy. You can actually tell who is actually in those sectors. So I can tell you right now, all these guys, you cannot vet one and say this one is clean, this is not clean. These guys, they are actually playing politics on Kenyan people. And I can say that without any fear. They are playing politics with Kenyan people. I tell you a very good example, and I have seen it happen, even in private entities. There is one company I used to work some years ago, and we used to bring like vehicles and all these kind of things. Do you know what you are hearing here is things which people have actually mastered. It is an art which has been mastered. What has been happening is that we are actually importing vehicles. Little didn't you know that there was actually an agreement with those companies and the top people. That
the top people in
the organization
the private company you work for, and then the top people in the organization or in the national government.
Not even, most of them, they were actually even in the national government. You know, that's why I'm telling you, this Kenya is owned by very few people. That organization, it had so many government guys. And you know what was happening? Every vehicle that was coming to Kenya, there was some money which was being left in an account in Jesse. It was actually being left there. It is already loaded in your price, but there are some people at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, they are actually getting there. You hear someone has thrown. And you know, by the time they are coming, so many transactions have already been done. I can tell you, one of the things he has said, and it is very correct, there is no G2G without the national oil. That one, you can take it to the books. And I can tell you, if that information is so clear, see, he said, the president said that that is in the parliament. Why is it that, and these guys, why we are saying they are not clean? You remember the time that the former president, Uhuru, went to Mombasa, and he met the journalist,
Yes.
And at that time they were talking about SGR and they were talking about the KPA being the collateral for the Chinese. And you know, the former president said within some few days
he will make it public.
He will make it public. Have you ever seen that report about the KPA? I can tell you, even these things that they are talking about, they are public. They are not public. It is some few people who are actually having the access for that information. Most of the people here, they don't know. Even the members of parliament, they actually don't have the nitty-gritties. And I can tell you, and I said the other week, when you hear the former Prime Minister speak, you can actually get to know there is something that he is saying.
Yes. Every time there's some smoke, but he also has his hands in this cookie jar.
He is involved.
Yes.
That's why I'm telling you.
He's involved in that sector.
It is a sector that he is actually in. And therefore today, if it doesn't favor you,
you scream.
You are actually going to scream. And what you are saying is that
I saw Ngaire, you said no.
Yeah, and you see, for example, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, as it stands today, is a civilian. He's not even an MCA. So he's just another regular Kenyan here.
He's not regular.
But legally speaking.
You see, there's legally and there's qua ground between
speaking in the context of the president.
Yes.
President William Ruto is a public servant with a mandate over our trillions of taxes.
True.
You understand? And he's the head of government. He has come forth to say that to cushion Kenyans, I'm going to engage in a particular contract on behalf of the 50 million Kenyans.
Yes.
To cushion them on high prices and the strong dollar. That's what the president has said. He's our president. Raila Odinga is not our president. He's not in charge of any single state department. Even though he's an interested player there, he manufactures gas cylinders. It's public knowledge. So we do not denounce that. But I'm just saying, we must always pay attention to who actually is sitting on our taxes. That is the person that Kenyans are supposed to look to and say, look, you collected my 10 shillings and this is what you deserve. Pastor David might have an opinion, but if you're the one collecting our taxes, you're the person that we should actually be asking, how have you spent my shilling? He might have an opinion that is to his own benefit. That is his personal endeavor.
So let me ask you. So from your standpoint, from the facts that you have, who, without naming names, if it's the government, you'll tell us government official, who in the world has imported this oil? The 17 billion. Because it's given, it's not Anjeri.
Every single month, forget about Anjeri. Anjeri is just a face of characters that want to corrupt what is happening now as a fallback. But you see, fuel importation is a monthly endeavor. That's why government every month, I think 14th of every month, sets new oil prices. That's why there was actually an issue of the CEO of EPRA. Because he did it publicly. He was part of the delegation that went to Saudi. Remember, the president was in Saudi just the other day. And part of his delegation, and this is a public servant, so he's paid before by our taxes. He didn't just take him by himself there. When you have the CEO of EPRA overseas, being part of the negotiators of oil prices, and then jets back on Monday or Tuesday to set up the new prices for a mandate that is not, it is not his mandate to negotiate for the country in terms of fuel prices or not. Him is supposed to just look at the terms of the tax bill, how he's supposed to do his rates, and then look at the landing cost, and then ABCD, the terms of government, and set up a new prices. That's all he's supposed to do. But then when you have a picture like that, it shows you that there is personal interest in what is happening in that particular ministry. And this is a challenge that we have with Churchill, C.S. Churchill, who is a public servant and owes Kenyans the truth, you know, but he's been unable to actually tell Kenyans the truth as to who owns the fuel prices. Because, Fred, if you've done some little importation like we've done before, a ship cannot be cleared to take off from a foreign port without the port of destination and the owner of the cargo. Any ship that docks at the port of Mombasa has its owner. It is very clear, and the sums that we are talking about, 17 billion is almost $110 million. That's not cheap money. You understand? And which bank in Kenya can guarantee a letter of credit and say, I'm sending to Pastor David $100 million to ship in fuel worth 17 billion? It can't be done by one importer. It's only the large-scale multinationals that can be able to do that, and those ones don't need government. They already have their resources from overseas. Remember, big multinationals like Shell and Total, actually, they're upstream companies that actually do the exploration. They're not just oil marketers. So they have the scale to bring in not even 17 billion, $1 billion worth of fuel. They don't need the letters of credit like what we are seeing for the small importers. Kenyans in this particular case have been conned, and I wish they can hold this government more accountable.
Well, let me tell you, Fred, and I will go to something that we call enterprise and transactional. Let me say, politics is enterprise and transactional all the time. And I can tell you, and that's one thing I said, in terms of politicians, I cannot sit here and just say, this politician is clean. It's above.
No.
Two things drive them. The enterprise itself and the transactions which is there. And that's why you can hear, I am telling you, and that is where I differ a bit with George. I can tell you, talk about Laila. He is in enterprise. And he is actually transacting.
Even now, as we see all this, they are
it is transactional. And that's why you realize, let me give you a very good example. Express Highway. How much money was it? Do you know that thing started during the Kibaki's time? It was supposed to cost this country how many billions? 27 billion. The Express Highway. This Express Highway, Kibaki looked at it and he said, this is too expensive for the Kenyan people. Do you know now, right now, Express Highway has been done. You know it is hitting what? It is hitting 79 billion. The same thing that Kibaki had said 27 billion is a lot. Too much, Right now we are talking, and you can confirm the figures, 79 billion. Let me ask a question. Where does it get from 27
to 79?
How many times have you seen even the opposition query those kind of things? Why is it that they are not querying some things?
People are very quiet.
And they are actually querying other things. This is because of two things. What we call the enterprise. And let me tell you, when politicians are actually doing what they are doing, they are actually doing like what you are doing here. This is your enterprise. Their politics is actually their enterprise. When it favors them, they are quiet.
So people aid. They've got pieces of the cake and the crumbs of the biscuit they ate from.
Correct. And I will tell you, there is the handshake. You remember? Between Uhuru and Raila. How on earth, even you didn't even think there can be that handshake. How is it that Uhuru was made clean by Raila?
The handshake.
By the handshake. All the evils that Uhuru was doing at that particular time, they actually ceased to be evils. And the battle was actually taken to another front. So what I am telling you is that in politics, these guys, and that's why I said it is business. And I can tell you, this Kenya, I can tell you 100%, 10% of the people, maybe even that might be a very high percentage, owns 80% of Kenya. Or something like that. And I can tell you today, you see like the way we are with Georgia, I can tell you, Luto and Laila, they are actually owners of some companies together. These guys are the people who are buying shares for companies, big companies. So even when we are seeing them run up here and down, at night, they are proxy. They are actually meeting together and discuss the same companies. This is actually what has been happening. Even like Mudavadi, you will find him that he owns this company, Uhuru is in that company, Ruto is in this company, and I can tell you, go to Taita. You will see exactly what is happening. Twiga Food, go and see. you'll just now get to see what I am talking about. You realize these guys are actually working together.
Yes.
Out here,
It's all business.
yes, out here, you are actually looking at them and you are saying
These
these
are
guys
enemies.
are on enemies.
Yes.
But I can tell you, go even to Parliament. Another day we went to Parliament. George, you go there.
Yeah.
Do you know these guys? You fight them in Parliament. They are fighting one another. When they go to their chamber there,
Yeah.
do you know all of them? They are giving one another high five.
At the cafeteria.
At the cafeteria.
You performed very well.
Yes.
It's an act.
Yes.
And could this be the reason why Samson Cherargei is taking on the CS Transport, Murkomen, and he made an allegation that gave me the heebie-jeebies. You know, he claims that the CS went to China and was given $100 million. And he quotes the company, says it's a China Wuyi. I think that's a company that did the Thika
The
Road.
construction,
And
yes,
many
of the
other
roads,
projects.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
so he says this guy has already been given $100 million. Now, we do not have confirmation of this. These are alleged
Allegations.
these are allegations that are in the public. Cherargei is saying that. But the boldness with which he says it, even in the presence of the president, must make you question, is this guy telling something? And he asked a very good question concerning the airport leaking roof. He says when the airport is leaking, the roofs are leaking, you don't form a committee.
Correct.
You formed a committee of 10 people.
Yeah.
What you do is you seal the leaking roofs.
That's the thing. That is the thing.
So I know he's got bile. He seems to have a lot of
Yeah.
bitterness against Murkomen. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But the fact that he has the confidence to say that even in the presence of the president raises a lot of questions.
And that is true. You know, let me say one thing. If, for example, Fred, I come and tell you, Fred, you stole my property.
And you say it
Yes.
in front of
Publicly.
Rem Kavoi.
Public.
Yes.
Actually, you have gone into public.
Yes.
If, for example, I have really hurt you, do you know what you'll do? You'll not keep quiet.
Yes.
You'll say, okay, these are things that you have said. You will pay me for the damages.
Yes.
I am headed to
court.
court. Why is it that this whole story, it is a very deep thing, but it is actually getting down to, you know, not even many people are actually getting to hear about it right now. This guy has said what he has said, and it is like he is a free man.
Yes.
And
Where is
this-
the EACC?
That's why I'm telling you, there are so many things which are happening,
Yes.
which that's why we are saying there is a problem, a very big problem. And that's where actually God will help us. Because if we are looking, we cannot look at these men to deliver us, to help us. Because these men are full of themselves. They are actually doing things, when they favor them, they are happy. When they don't, it doesn't favor them, they are not happy. And we need at least, and that's the time that at least we need some few men who are going to say, look, it is not more. And I don't know who is that who is going to come and start and say, it is not more about me. It is about the country. And you see, there is actually one statement that was said, that one, don't ask, what is this that the country can do for me? Ask yourself a question.
What can you do
is
for
it
the
that I can do for the country? We have very few people who are asking themselves this kind of a question. What they are asking every day, which deal can I get to? How can I get this? And you see, you find it is like the thieves. You remember there is a story about the thieves where they stole and they were actually somewhere. And they were just now sharing the spoils.
Yes.
He's saying, this is mine, this is yours. This is mine, this is yours. But can I tell you one thing? These guys, they have to do very many things for us to trust them as Kenyans.
It's ridiculous. $100 million.
15 billion shillings.
That's 15 billion shillings.
Yes.
And EACC has not spoken.
Yes.
All the anti-graft bodies, this is a serious allegation against a cabinet secretary.
You know, Fred, first of all, when I look at the issue of Cherargei and CS Murkomen, I look at three things. One is politics, two is greed, and three is what you call sibling rivalry. You know, even as a parent, maybe you have a son or daughters, you know, sometimes you might carry an item with a certain child in mind, not that you do dislike the other child, but the other child, out of her own conclusion, might feel like, maybe my dad doesn't like me this much, and then becomes bitter. It happens sometimes in families. Yeah. So when you have Murkomen, who comes from Elgeyo Marakwet and is a Marakwet, and then you have Cherargei, who comes from Nandi County, is a Nandi, and then you have the senior, the leader of my majority in the Senate, a very young man, born 1985, maybe 37, 38, Aaron Cheriot, who is a Kipsigis. You have a whole bunch of very young and ambitious men that are looking forward to build their political careers. And part of it is the stature that you be, you know, the kind of stature that you assume as days go by.
So you're trying to say this has everything to do with 2032? Going
forward.
Yes.
Because as I'm saying, it's both politics,
yes,
it's both greed, because somebody feels maybe another person is getting more than he deserves, and then that's what you call sibling rivalry, which is what I'm trying to explain, is that now you then have all these young men. Remember, they are all in their 30s. It's only Murkomen, who I think is born 1980, 79. This is equally just in the early 40s.
Yeah.
You know, I can easily call him my age mate, you know, that age group. You know, so they have a long way to go. You can imagine 30 years from today, they'll still be younger than my Raila Odinga. 30 years from today,
yes,
it's a very long way. So they're here to stay, and maybe they're looking forward to how they're going to build their careers. And so it's expected that within that system, and when a government is formed, you know, Fred, when you're planning a campaign, everybody has, his commitment is 100%.
Yes.
But after we've gotten the GOAT, that is where really the battle begins.
Everybody is fighting for a peace.
Yeah, everybody is now trying to get his own peace. That is when you know the true characters of the people that you are in the struggle with. Because it's at that point that sometimes you part ways, like what happened in the 2002 election.
But don't you think the fact that he's claiming and alleging that $100 million, it is not $2 million, it's $100 million, and he points at the company, he points at the individual, and he dares.
I agree, and that's what I was heading to.
Yes.
I was saying, first of all, you see, there could be a reason, and that's why when Pastor David was mentioning about interest in the oil business, is that it's possible that it's actually internal rivalry, because business rivalry, and that's why this other person is outing the other person. So we are not disputing the fact that it is true, and it's a serious allegation that government officials can be able to extort suppliers to that extent, because 100 million shillings is a whole, it can actually
that's
fund
15 billion.
Yeah.
Some of these
huge.
3-4 counties, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
And Kenyans,
you say it can fund 2 or 3 counties.
yes,
Yeah.
small counties like Embu, you know, Isiolo and Lamu hardly get 5 billion shillings.
Yes.
So 15 billion is actually an annual budget for 3-4 counties.
That's huge.
That's
when you put it like that,
exactly.
it's humongous.
$1 million shillings is about the size of a brick. To understand what $1 billion is that we can load this entire studio with that's what it means. That is money that you can't carry, even if we give you for free. You know, some people just robbed a bank the other day, 2 weeks ago, about 90 million shillings. They've been unable to run away with it. They found the money stashed in Mitungis, and you saw that.
Yes, I
they
do.
could have had 90 million. Now you tell me 15 billion shillings. It's not a joke.
That's a lot of money.
So I think very quickly, politically, from a political angle of view, like I've said, it's both political. There's greed, also internal greed, because they're competing with getting what? There's simply rivalry because of where they come from. These are young men and have a long career ahead of them. But also, it is possible that it is true. And looking at how even the body language and the tone with which Cherargei has been speaking with clearly is a very informed young guy, and is an insider. Is one of those guys that he's part of the shareholders that this deputy president, unfortunately, deputy president Rigathi Gachagua rubbed on our faces.
Yes.
And the non-shareholders, we can agree that the shareholders have an idea of what's happening in the government. So Cherargei is not far off from the truth.
Yes.
He's really within the truth, and I think it's up to the EACC and particularly the Kenyans. Fred, at this point in time, now that we've said all politicians are in it, it's only the Kenyans that can hold this government into account. Because on
now,
paper,
how do we hold them into account? We can't meet them in the street, take them up and, do mob justice. Because you go to parliament, you go to the opposition are crying foul because they are not eating. And when they start eating, they keep quiet. So we go to the courts are paid off in most cases. So where are we supposed to turn? I know we're supposed to turn to the Lord, but where else are we supposed to turn and literally?
Fred, not just the Lord. On paper in our constitution, there are areas where it's actually Kenyans have been given a leeway on how they can hold their leaders into account. Remember, public initiatives are part of the constitutional process. That we can actually petition a public servant. There's a legal process on how you can petition a public servant to be held accountable, to be impeached, it's within the system. So, but then Kenyans have to do it as a team. You understand? Because then you need the masses to be able to compete.
But we have so many interests also as Kenyans.
Actually, you see, we have a very big challenge in this country. And I am very happy. Let me just, before I come to that, I just give one scenario. You've seen what has been happening at Meru.
Yes.
There is no, people are not even working. Every other day, it is you're out of Senate. Again, we are impeaching. You know, I am very happy what I have seen the Meru people do. Is actually, the Meru people have said, you are not serving us. So what are we going to do? We are going now to get all of you out. You have seen they have actually started to keep quiet because they have realized that the people are turning against them in Meru right now. Whatever they are trying to do, it will get to a point whereby all of them are going to be sent packing.
Yes.
Now, what we have a big challenge in this country is that for some time, the Kenyan people, we wait for too long. We are seeing what is happening, but even the people who are supposed to be at the forefront, and that's why we talk about if these oppositions are genuine people, there are some few things, like now from the opposition. Have you heard that issue being mentioned about the Mulkomen?
No.
Why is it that there are some few, it is selectively, you know, we are very selective in what we want to talk about. Because, can I ask you a question? What kind of an image are we portraying for Kenya, even to the outside world? And that's why you can find that even some countries in East Africa, they don't want to trade with Kenya. It is because everything they touch about Kenya, they hear stories. If it is not oil, go to Uganda. Museveni, right now, he doesn't want to hear about Kenya, trading with Kenya. It is because we are actually involved in things which do not have integrity at all. You hear this, before even you leave this one, you are actually hearing another saga. And you are asking yourself a question. Why is it that we are like this? And I think it has to get to a point whereby, I don't know whether we'll get remnants, people who have the voice and the strong and the Kenyan people who are actually going to get to say, we don't want all these kind of things. Because one of the things that is actually a problem is being tribal in this country. Sometimes you go and steal. You have stolen and you go to your people. Yes, and you go to your people and they say, they actually go on the road. And saying we want our man back or our woman back. What kind of country are we in?
People are paid. People are paid.
Corruption. Yes, corruption.
To go and
everywhere.
That's why it was very fulfilling to see C.S. Churchill being, being outed by his own people the other day in the Met. And this is somebody that is supposed to be, he comes from that county, that is his home county. At the very least, he expected...
they literally heckled him.
They did.
In the presence of the president.
Alfred Keter, the former member of parliament for Nandi Hills, said something that I wish that message sinks to the very bottom of every other person that comes, particularly from the president's, backyard.
Well, are you troubled by the silence of the president when one of his lieutenants is being accused? The president said that, it will not be business as usual, and he, talked tough on dealing with people who are dealing with corruption. One of your lieutenants, a cabinet secretary, is actually alleged to have stolen or been given $100 million US, 15 billion shillings as bribe. The president has been awfully quiet. I mean, shouldn't this, I know if today some allegations happened here in the station about me, I can assure you that Rev Kavoi will not be silent.
That is the thing.
He will. But now the president is very.
Just for the benefit of Pastor David, and any other Kenyan that is listening to us, in the 51 state departments that we have currently, because the president expanded the state departments from 43 to 51, so we have 51 PSs.
Yes.
There is no single department that approves anything above 100 million shillings without the president's approval.
There's no.
There is no transaction or any commitment by any of the 51 state departments that can be approved over 100 million shillings, Kenyan million shillings. It could be around $600, $700 million. I mean, $600,000, something like that. Because now a dollar is at 160. So 100 million should be less than $1 million. There is no transaction of 100 million shillings that can be approved in any of the 51 state departments without the approval of the president. So anything you hear in terms of billions, that's why I've been telling Kenyans. I had somebody, I was on a different show yesterday, and somebody was telling me, the president needs to now get in the middle of this 17 billion shilling fuel. They are spoiling his name. I asked him, are you kidding me? That somebody is going to transact 17 billion shillings at the port of Mombasa, which is under Captain William Ruto, who is the MD of Kenya Ports Authority, whom they picked from the village. The president went to a bush somewhere in his home and collected an MD and took him to coast because they really wanted to have an eye of what is happening at the port. There is no single commitment from any of the state departments, the 51 state departments, and we have about 290 state corporations. The parastatals, and then there's what you call the semi-autonomous government, SAGA. Those are small units within the government, but they're also considered as parastatals. None of them can commit anything above 100 million without the president. And this president is not a lazy president. He's the kind of president that actually calls he can call you a local chief in Murang'a, Fred, directly. He's a very hands-on president. And so anything that is above 100 million, be rest assured the president is fully aware of it. It's only that he's managing the politics around it.
Actually, what you have said, George, it even makes the issue to be more complicated. And I think that's why he is asking, does it bother us? Because it bothers us in a very big way. The question is, if, like now my family is Wamadhu's family, there is a voice that we speak with. And there is a voice you'll find that my brothers, my sisters, and my mother, when we start as Wamadhu, there are things we don't want them to be associated with us. And those are the values that we have upheld as a family. Here in this church, and even in these studios, there are some things that we hold dear. And there are things we will not do. And because like the board of EBN, what they stand for, there are some things you will not come and do here. In fact, when you are trying to do them, you will shiver and feel this is now against.
It's like you're skidding over broken glass.
Correct. And because you know the kind of the values that this organization holds,
Yes.
there are some things you will not do. The question that we are asking ourselves, and he has said it very well, the president is involved in many mega things which are happening. Actually, he is aware about all these kind of things. The question is, when we see the young people speaking a different voice from what we expect the government should be talking about, is it that the government does not have values that they hold in their cabinets? Is it that they don't values that they hold in the ministries, such that in terms of communication, in terms of doing things, there is something that guides you? Because let me tell you, and you've said it very well, the president is seated there.
Yeah,
And the young boys,
they're exchanging words.
they are exchanging
in
words.
church.
Yes. This is actually whereby, and yesterday, if you watch what Farah Malim said, he also was very bitter. And he said the same thing, that you find the deputy president, he will go and say something, which is actually, like now these shareholders, what kind of a language is that? You know, it is a terrible statement, and he will even say it when the president is there.
Yes.
Let me say one thing, and I really say it strongly from my heart. If you find there is a problem with an organization, don't go far. Start also looking at the top. There is a problem at the top. There are some things that are supposed to be done, but the person at the top is actually either part of it, or either, I don't know, because as he has said, our president is a man who actually managed by walking around. You know, we call it in strategy mbwa.
Yes.
We call it mbwa, managing by walking around.
Yes.
So he gets to know everything that is happening. And therefore it is a shame. Actually, I would say it is a big shame.
Yes.
And I think this government need to change the way they are doing things. We don't want to be all the time expecting. When I see like the deputy president, he is actually now on the podium. I am actually even like trying to close my ears.
You're reducing the volume on your TV.
Yes.
You might just say something.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what he is going to say next. You know, he goes to Mombasa. You see, just another day, he goes to Mombasa. And he is talking about the floods. And you know what he says? He says all the counties, the money has been released for them to do what? To actually assist the people. And then you see the Mombasa governor goes now on the air and he says, this deputy president has lied. And you know, the following day, the deputy president changes the tune. And he says, as the government, we are not going to give you money. Go to your emergency funds. What kind of a communication is this that we are getting in this government? And that's why we are saying there is a serious problem. And if our president is going to be spared, he needs to take charge on some of these things which are happening. We cannot be losing business. You find we are losing business to Tanzania. People are now more comfortable, other countries are more comfortable trading with Tanzania than Kenya. And you know, Kenya is actually the hub. We have everything. In fact, Kenya is known, not here in East Africa. It is known in the whole world. Yesterday in France, what is it that we saw? It is that Kenya is actually being now accorded the heritage, you know, the heritage. So we are going to be getting funds because of the heritage that we have in many different places.
Yes.
These are the things that we want to hear about Kenya.
But these funds will come, hopefully.
Fred, every time the head of state travels abroad, he carries a delegation of about 30-40 people that go with him. Then there's a receiving delegation at the host country, the ambassadors and the people that take care of the president, the bookings of hotels, and the protocol team. It's almost 100 people. It costs 100 million shillings every time the president leaves the country.
100 million
100 million shillings. In between what it goes for, the flight tickets, the per diems, the hotels, and all that. It's never below 1 million shillings. I knew that from when Kalonzo was the vice president. I had a relative of mine who worked for him, and I was his PA. That was the first time I even went to State House. It was that end of the year, you know, the celebrations end of the year celebrations during President Kibaki's time. And I saw what it costs to mount a presidential trip. And so when you have the president spending 100 million every time he goes out, and in less than 50 weeks he's traveled 40 times, it means he's
in less than
50 weeks. You know, a year has 54 weeks.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the president is just about a year. So he's done almost 50 weeks. And in 50 weeks he's traveled, it was 38. Then he went to Germany the other day, 39. Yesterday he was in Arusha, 40. The president has traveled 40 times, spending 4 billion shillings a year. So he's likely to do 20 billion in the next 5 years. This is the most traveled president in the history of our country. Because President Kenyatta himself, for 15 years, never left the country more than 15 times. In 15 years. President Moi hardly did that in the entire 24 years. We only had President Uhuru Kenyatta who did really go out, but you know, it's over a certain period of time. But in under 50 weeks, this president has gone to 40 countries on taxpayers' money. And that is the same president that wants to tell other leaders to cut costs. My point was that...
Wouldn't you... This has been the argument. If you're looking at the cost, can you look also at what is coming in? So that maybe the heritage funds that he's talking about from France, there's been a lot of...
Well, actually, do you know, for me, when I come to something like heritage, I am happy it is something which is getting out from the negative. You see, what I am saying is a positive gains. We should hear a bit of positiveness in Kenya, because what we are actually dealing with today is actually, you hear every other week, is a negative thing. Can't we have a time whereby we'll start at least hearing, like now, let's say, for example, we talked about fuel. The cost of fuel. Last month, you know what happens after all these fights and all that? It is the petrol remained at where it is. You get to diesel, it is actually, it lost from like around from 180, it went to 200. Right now they are telling us they are bringing down the cost of fuel to bob. You see, the thing is, there are some things which we are doing in Kenya which are annoying. And that's why I'm saying we should at least get, like now, we are waiting for the president. He announced. You remember another day he announced and he said, you will see the price of fuel come down. Because, do you know, and why I'm saying we need a positive, this government, there is a very serious problem. And in fact, I am also not very happy what I am seeing. And that's why I'm saying, George.
Yes.
There is the dialogue, which is happening. Look at what is happening with the dialogue. Are we getting anywhere, or are we just
a waste
praying,
of
with the mind of Kenyans?
It's just a complete waste of taxpayers' money.
Those are the things I am saying. When you look at the things that we are fighting every other day, they are very bad. And they are making people to feel they have lost hope. Do you know how many people have lost contracts right now as we speak? People cannot be able even to sustain contracts. People are not even being paid. Some people are being auctioned yesterday. And that's why we are saying we need positiveness in this country. And the president needs to take charge. And I am actually saying here again, he needs to take charge. Yesterday, Utawala, go to the Utawala. There is one flat. One flat which is being sold. It is a distress sale. It is being sold for 15 million.
A whole flat?
Yeah. It is there. 15 million. And people are still advertising it. 15 million. Not many people have been able, even that 15 million, to go and say, let me buy this flat as distress. When you find an owner of a flat, he is actually going and selling that flat at 15 million, is because at the end of the day he is saying, if the bank sells, I will lose everything. But I may actually salvage even a 5 million, if, for example, or 8 million, if the bank is looking for 7 million or something like that. But you can see the state that is in this country. So when we see games and people are losing their properties, others are being auctioned, others you did even work You did work with the government. Getting even the payment from the government. We were talking with you, George, here.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are saying the counties right now, how many months are they behind?
It's terrible. 3 months.
3 months.
3 months. They've not
Yes.
been given the money.
Yes. So look at the state that we are in. And that's why I'm saying, for me, for once, I want to hear positive things.
Beautiful. Let's see whether this is going to put a smile on your face. Yesterday, the results of the KCPE came out. People are celebrating. It's the end of the kind of exams that we had, where there was immense pressure being put on students and pupils, you know, to perform at a certain level. And if you didn't hit a certain level yesterday, it's like the country saying you're a failure. But now the new system of education is going to have a different way of, you know, checking whether, basically testing you. Do you think this is something we can now celebrate? Oh, he's quiet.
Very true.
Yes.
That's something that we can say.
He's quiet.
That's why I have looked at him, because I have just come from talking.
Yeah, but I'm really happy with the kind of progress that we are making in terms of revamping our education system.
Yes.
Because I too had a problem with that you can go through the 844 system, for example.
Yes.
You can go through an 8-year period in the primary school.
Yeah.
For a very bright child, probably topped class throughout the time.
Yes.
And then the last week of the exam on his 8th year, maybe becomes sick or for whatever reasons, he's not in the right place to face that exam that particular week, and you consider him a failure. And so with the new system that we are having now with the CBC, part of is there are pros and cons to that system, and that can be debated. But part of it is that the grading system has allowed us to take into account the progress the child has made over a certain period of time, so that those that truly have been at their best for the majority of the times, they don't really need to even pass the very last test, because the accumulation of the grading system allows them to fail. That is one. Two, when the attitude of the society on what is considered a failure and a pass had largely been concentrated on academic prowess, which is not really the case, because I might not succeed, be as talented in academics, but I might be very good in something else that could truly make me a success in the community. And I'm happy that the society, and even now the CBC system, which now looks at over and above your academics, allows us to look at, besides mathematics, what else can Gaira be good at? And if that is good, can the society accept that he is not a talented academician, but is a very good footballer or something, or is a very good broadcaster, right? And I'm able to do fantastic shows. So we support what we are doing now, where we are with the CBC system. And then I think the society is slowly embracing what would have been considered a failure the other time, is that now we have a system that looks over and above the paperwork and to see what the student can be. And I think that is the best way that we can do. We can work on how to improve the system, and think the challenge with the CBC was never the concept, was the funding of the concept. Because parents were saying, yes, it's indeed true, I'd love to see what else can come out for my child, but now, how do I finance this? So the debate has always been the infrastructure, which is the teachers, the schools, and then the parents being enabled to be able to support that academic system, is the debate that I hope as a country will be able to look at.
David, you're a board member I know in a couple of schools. Your thoughts?
Well, I think now these are the positive things I want to hear. Because as we can agree here, this is positive. Because one of the things is, and I will give you an example. Yesterday I was sitting with a young man. This man went out of the country, and he did his education out of the country, and he came back to the country. So he is working here in Kenya. In fact, we thought that he would not come back to Kenya, but he came back to Kenya. Yesterday, as we were talking, he amazed me. It is because he went out and he did civil engineering. Right now, as we speak, he got a job last year, 1.5 months ago, 1.5 years ago. And this man, he is doing now, there is a job that was being advertised, and someone went to him and asked him, can you get me, because you are in engineering, can you get me someone who can be able to do mechanical? It is in some of these oil companies. This young man told them, why are you looking?
Yeah, I'm here.
I am here. A man who did not do mechanical,
Yes.
but do you know right now as we speak,
Yes.
he is about to blow off that company to the extent he is taking it to the other level.
Mhm.
A young man, but right now he is actually reporting to the MD. He is the number 2. Why is it that I am saying this, I am giving this example? It is because he is good at what he does. Apart from the academic, there is the area that he is an expert, and it is in him.
Mhm.
So he didn't even need to do so many other things for him to become a mechanical engineer.
Mhm.
It is because in him, CBC is actually bringing talents. And that's why I'm very happy when I hear us going that direction. Because you'll find that many people will be able now to be put into the right positions.
Mm.
Some of the people that you call failures
Mhm.
are actually the CEOs of big organizations tomorrow.
Mm.
They are the people who actually bring. Do you know innovations come from where?
True.
It comes from down there. Look, another day we were saying, there is a young boy who was actually hanging, you know, in terms of the clothes.
Mhm.
He is actually unhanging the clothes when he is very far.
Mhm.
He has a remote, and he has actually done something which is able actually, when the whole thing senses lane, it brings the clothes
clothes in.
inside. Now, that man, if you
And
go
this is a Kenyan.
He's a Kenyan, a young boy. And you know, you go and you say that he failed because he got a D plus. But look at where his mind is. This man, by building his capacity, you would be able to see so many things are happening in this country. So we have been wasting skills, and we have been wasting capacities. But with CBC, I
We're going
believe people are going now to be settled where they are supposed to be, and it is going to be progressive.
All right,
And the society, quickly, the society
Yes.
is really appreciating that there's more than just academics.
Mhm.
We can look at the other potential that you know, somebody has and be able to tap it for the benefit of the community,
I
which is
love
a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, we had asked that question concerning, you know, CBC. I mean, the exams, whether they were exerting undue pressure on students. Some children actually took their lives, which is so unfortunate.
Correct.
And that's the reason why we were seeing a lot of cheating in exams, because, you know, if I get that paper at the end and it says I've failed, I am a failure. Doors just automatically close. We have Njeri who says, no, I believe that exams bring positive pressure. We are able to reward the hardworking students. It also enables sponsorship for bright students. Then we have Ndeti Emmanuel who says, it puts a lot of pressure for sure. The students think that they should pass the exam because there's a lot of expectation in them, so they fear to fail. Then Dadahuru, you say pressure is inevitable in every phase of life. This pressure from exams is not different from job interviews and election results. It's good for the bile. Then you have RNC Visuals, you say, I think we should do away with the exams, introduce a more competent curriculum. I think CBC will work if teachers stop using it to exploit parents and focus on what's best for the students. Then we have Mika who says, I agree, national exams, especially the announcement of the topmost students, put pressure on students to perform. This is made public by the number of exam cheating in our schools. Every school wants to be on the top results for the purpose of marketing. Hence, they come up with ways to get top performance. Then we have Alan who says, nice conversation. So there's a lot of good, by the way, happening in this country. A lot of good. And what we do is we highlight some of the things that leaders need to take charge of. When we highlighted the aspect of corruption in the oil industry, an allegation of a cabinet secretary being given $100 million, which is 15 billion shillings as bribe, we expect the leadership, which is the president, to come in and give direction and deal with the allegation. If the allegations are for sure, then CS Murkomen should go back to Marakwet as soon as the earliest bus tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And if it's not, we should be told this mere allegation with the Anti-Corruption Commission coming out and demanding, summoning him to go there, and we need to see something happening. That's what leaders are supposed to do. When things are going well, you pour water so that that can continue. You, like Christ prunes, God prunes a tree that is doing well to make sure it does even better. But when that tree is not working, something needs to happen.
Yes.
And happen pretty fast.
Sure.
Do you have yourself a lovely morning? I remember in a couple of hours or so at around 11, the daughters of the kingdom are going to come, and they're going to tell us a lot about what is happening within that sphere and what the king has been saying about his daughters. Have yourself a lovely morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.